warm welcome for everybody. I'm not entirely sure of who is going to watch this session. And maybe I just give you a short intro on MoneyLab and the intention of this event. And I will also do a recap of what has happened and what you are going to expect over the course of today. So those of you that are tuning in for the first time have a clear idea on what it is that we are planning to do. Okay? So, yeah, my name is Ela Kagel. I'm co-founder of Supermarkt Berlin, and that's also where I'm currently located in our mini studio. And we are around as Supermarkt since 10 years. Started off in an abandoned grocery store in Berlin. That's where the name comes from. And since 10 years, we have been engaged in this very peculiar area between culture, technology, money, and society. And we have been organizing many conferences and workshops and have done research and a lot of advocacy work on open source technologies and the commons and many other related topics. And yeah, since around 2 years ago, I had the idea of planning a MoneyLab in Berlin and got in touch with Gerd Lofink from the Institute of Network Cultures. And yeah, so we applied for funds in the last year to make it happen. And I also want to thank Hauptstadt Kulturfonds here in Berlin for funding us, and also the Institute of Network Cultures for supporting this conference. And when we planned it exactly 1 year ago, we choose the topic disaster capitalism. And I remember back then, I wasn't entirely sure whether this would still be the hot topic 1 year after. But yeah, obviously, it is still, that's still the reality we have to deal with. And those of you who are not entirely sure about what disaster capitalism actually is, let me just give you a brief intro. So the term was coined by Naomi Klein in her book, The Shock Doctrine. And according to Naomi Klein, disaster capitalism is or refers to the exploitation of different crises in order to establish controversial policies, while citizens are emotionally or also, organizationally too distracted to respond and take adequate action. So that's basically the situation we find ourselves in. And we have several implications on that. And this is what we are looking into here at MoneyLab. We are looking into the roles and functionalities of money. We are looking into forms of organizing, modes of resistance, but also we shed light on individuals and organizations that are already working on real alternatives. And we all know that this is starting. This is pretty much an emerging field. But the hope behind all these projects is that one day they will grow bigger and stronger in order to present real alternative to the predominant market economy. That's at least what we are hoping for. So what have we been doing over the past 2 days? The conference is structured in 4 parts. On day 1, it was all about rebuilding our economy, rebuilding our imagination, because this, I think, is a precursor for every kind of social innovation, anything we are going to do differently in the future, for any form of adaptation also. And this is all, especially if we look into the field of decentralized governance and blockchain. The main challenge is not in adapting protocols or building tech infrastructure, but the biggest challenge actually lies in the change of mindset. And we have heard from really interesting examples over the past 2 days where people talked about how they handle this shift in mindset, how they handle this change process. And it's interesting because the more we look into it and the more we talk about it, the more we realize that we are actually covering a very broad and complex territory. And I don't think there is anyone out there who has all the answers and who knows all about it. But there are things happening on many different fronts and on many different ends. And talking about ends, that's also something we look into, to tie those loose ends together. Because I think this, if we talk about the MoneyLab community and what MoneyLab actually is, then I think the interesting thing about it is the fact that it's quite diverse. It's a group of people originally coming from academia, but then increasingly got joined by people from various other disciplines, finance activists, researchers, organizers of cultural events. And interestingly enough, money and finance also more and more became a subject for artistic and cultural practice and production over the past years. And I have been thinking about that quite a lot, why that was. And I think it probably goes back to the financial crisis, 2007, 2008, when we've seen the rise of protest movements such as Occupy Wall Street, when we've seen the emergence of Bitcoin. So that was really interesting to see. And I think this whole change that then started, that of course wasn't purely a financial or technological one, but one that has long-standing impact on our society, that also pretty much influenced artists and activists to respond to the reality around us. So that's why this MoneyLab team is super diverse. And we try to touch down on many different things, try to tackle many different complexities at the same time. And I think that's also reflected in the program. So this whole rebuilding our imagination is something that it's a core topic throughout the entire conference. And we dedicated the first day to it with speakers such as Gerd Lofink, the person who basically kicked off MoneyLab in the first place in 2014 with the first event. This is now here, the 11th edition already. And there's a 12th edition also being planned, hopefully this year. So we were then followed by Ruth Catlow from Furtherfield in London and DCAL. And we had a super inspiring conversation on decentralized governance. We had the amazing disco team with us, Irene Lopez de Vallejo and Stacco Troncoso, and they introduced us to disco, which was amazing. And I shall not forget our partners here in Berlin at Trust, who helped us putting this rich and diverse program together. So they introduced themselves, and we then had open community calls on Friday night on the topic of NFTs and crypto art. And it was really nice to see in the following session then the people here in the community and projects they were presented. And that already got us, I think, a glimpse of the complexity I was just talking about. Yesterday was packed, was a long day, but nonetheless super inspiring, I think. So the first half of the day was dedicated to monetary experiments, and we had workshops running parallel to the conference stream. So we presented Circles, the universal basic income on the internet, on the blockchain. We also presented the social coin and their update on where they stand. We had a super interesting debate on socializing tokens hosted by Trust. We had then the second part of the day was all about diving into new economies for arts and culture with Yael Sharil, Janine Benduski from Luft, and Eric Baudelot and the Sphere crew, really taking a deep dive into future possibilities of how art and culture might be financed in a different way. independent from state funding or together with state funding and many other stakeholders. We still don't know, but they nonetheless presented a broad range of very inspiring opportunities and visions. And then we had a super interesting close of yesterday, and that was the Data Art Invisible Economy team, which was inspiring because they basically gave us an example of how an organization can culturally be reorganized in a manner that that they could confidently say it works really well for us. So that was amazing. And Eon, sorry, Henrik. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I just had to. I had to give a sign. Yeah. So I just had to give a sign. I got distracted. Sorry. And now the question is, how are we going to continue today? Today is the last day of MoneyLab. That means today is all about modes of organization. We will talk about how to get organized in order to tackle all these challenges we are facing ahead of us. We will start off with economic space agencies, Pekko Koskinen, introducing us to a very interesting model of organization. And it's basically, it's an introduction into game-based experimental orgs, X-orgs. I'm very much looking forward to it. And Pekko is getting ready behind the scenes, and we'll have him in the session quite soon. And then after Pekko, we'll welcome Jonathan Miller from the Tech Workers Coalition here in Berlin. And Jonathan will give us an idea of how Amazon became the Death Star of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm very much looking forward to that. Then, after a short break, we will hear from Rabea Berfelde. She is part of the expropriate Deutsche Wohnen und Co. collective. That's a really interesting public action against a housing company that doesn't do their job and really try to make profit from the pressing real estate situation here in Berlin. And we hear from them how they get organized, and that's going to be very inspiring. We'll have Ailey Rutherford today with her String Figures workshop. This is very limited in seats, and I'm sorry that it's completely booked, but we'll present the outcomes of that workshop because that is going to be interesting. This is about finding ways of future collaboration, especially around the topic of MoneyLab. And the participants in that workshop will basically do a very interesting work for all of us. We're going to present the results. And then it will be my pleasure as a last session for today to welcome Rachel Yuba from School of Machines, Making and Make-Believe here in Berlin. And we are going to talk about tools for collaboration and how to make the world better through a mixture of decentralized organizing, code of conduct, and the right approach towards tools. This is a follow-up on a class we have already had last year. And now it's a very good time to discuss learnings. So that's basically what to expect today. And I'm super happy to see many of you again. Please join our chat, because I'm going to monitor the chat throughout the whole day. And please come up with questions. I'm very happy to include the questions in the program. And also, I kindly ask you to log into the Discord server of MoneyLab in case you haven't already. Because we now have, how many people do we have there? I think it's almost 200 or even more that signed up. And the MoneyLab Discord server really grew into a super interesting resource with different channels on feminist economics, on NFT and crypto art. We also have a kitchen area where people can just hang out and get to know each other and discuss. So I'm really happy about this group, and I just want to encourage you to join it.